This lesson will introduce the process of science and help us meet Objective 1.1.13. So, how do we science? What's involved to help ensure that the scientific findings that we learn about are reliable and accurate? There's a general guideline to follow, which we'll introduce here and review in the first lab activity. First, let's look at the two views of scientific reasoning. These include inductive and deductive reasoning. Both types are compared in Figure 1.7 of the textbook. Inductive reasoning is made through many observations to form a general conclusion about something. In contrast, deductive reasoning takes a general premise to form very specific results or conclusions. You may be able to conclude that the two types of reasoning are related to one another. Inductive reasoning leads to deductive reasoning, which can lead to more inductive observations. Inductive reasoning uses many observations, which leads to generalizations, which can help in the formation of models of theories, for example. Models and theories then can be used to make predictions for experiments, which give specific results during deductive reasoning. A key foundation to science is how any scientific reasoning and experiment are carried out. The steps listed here are a general guideline, and depending upon what is being studied, there may be some modifications. First, one needs to make observations of the world around them. Second, a specific question should be asked. Third, a hypothesis statement should be formed. Fourth, an experiment should be conducted. Fifth, data should be collected and analyzed. Lastly, a conclusion should be made. Looking at each step in better detail, to form observations, one would apply deductive reasoning to form generalizations from specific observations. The question formed must be very specific. The hypothesis statement is not an educated guess. It's an informed statement based upon specific observations. Criteria for forming a good hypothesis statement is that it needs to be specific, testable, and falsifiable. Falsifiable means that at the end of an experiment, one may actually reject their hypothesis. The prediction was incorrect. The experiment needs to be controlled with dependent and independent variables. The dependent variable is what is measured in an experiment, while the independent variable is sometimes referred to as the treatment and is believed to be causing the change. An experiment will compare an experimental group to a control group. The two groups differ only in one variable. The control group will not receive any independent variable treatment. Lastly, a good experiment needs to be repeatable by other scientists in the same field. Data are the measurable results of an experiment. Data may be qualitative, which includes descriptive words and are not standardized in units. Instead, it may include data of how a person feels about something. Many social science studies perform qualitative research. Quantitative research data results in numbers at the end, using standardized units such as feet, deciliters, and milligrams. A conclusion will either accept or reject the original hypothesis. Note that a hypothesis is never proven true, it is merely accepted or rejected. Lastly, the conclusions will likely lead to the formation of new observations. Oftentimes, scientific research is published in a peer-reviewed journal. Pause this video and, on your own, list the typical order of the method of science. Lastly, we need to acknowledge how the many scientific fields are interrelated and rely upon one another. Sir Isaac Newton was quoted as saying, "If I have seen further, it is only by standing on the shoulders of giants." Science is like this, in that preceding knowledge leads to new knowledge. In the scientific community, science is a body of knowledge whose content is facilitated by model organisms such as mice, rats, yeast, fruit flies, and nematode worms. Scientific processes can be in theory or applied, which means satisfying a curiosity versus a need. Lastly, peer-reviewed scientific findings help ensure a more diverse set of viewpoints. Foundational to this body of knowledge are scientific theories. Theories are much broader in scope than a hypothesis. They can lead to new testable hypotheses. They are supported by much evidence, whose findings are believed to be true, and can also be modified or changed depending upon any new evidence. Some examples include the cell theory, relativity theory by Einstein, theory of evolution, and plate tectonics theory. In summary, biology is the study of living organisms and how they interact with one another and their environments. Biological evolutions of populations is an important unifying theory in biology, and the scientific method is used to design and conduct controlled experiments for the collection of data and making observations. This concludes the Chapter 1 lecture video series.